Good evening and welcome to this edition of Chit Chat Live with the in-depth genealogist for the week of October 5th, 2015. This evening, our special guest is Lisa Alzo. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. We're really pleased to have our good friend Lisa Alzo joining us this evening. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm doing great, Shannon. How are you all?
We're doing pretty good, or at least I am.
Okay.
Terry and Jen are also joining me this evening. How are you, ladies?
Doing good. I'm
Good.
good. I'm getting in the Halloween mood.
She has an orange room. We were teasing her about it.
Apparently, I am in orange glow right now, so we'll see what the camera does as the show goes on.
Oh, your pumpkin spice.
Pumpkin spice. There you go.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight, Lisa. We're very excited to have you chit-chatting with us.
I'm great. I'm glad you asked me to join you. This is going to be fun.
Oh, we always think it is. So I want to know, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who, because you're kind of like one of those genealogists. And
Okay.
people, yeah, I know. Isn't that a bad word?
Yes.
Blame Mary Tedesco. She taught me it. But everyone always wants to know how people get started or why they're on this path in the genealogy field. And I didn't know if you had a somewhat middle length, not too long, not too short answer about what got you started in this field.
Very easy answer. I never intended to be a genealogist. And if you would have told me 25 years ago or so that I'd be working as a genealogy professional, I would have said you were crazy. But I came into it really through the back door. So my blog is called The Accidental Genealogist for a reason. I was actually studying for my Master's of Fine Arts at the University of Pittsburgh, and that was for nonfiction writing. And at the time, I needed a topic for my thesis, and I was taking a course called The Literature of Pittsburgh, in which I was reading a book called Out of This Furnace. And it was a novel published back in the 1940s by Thomas Bell, and it was a fiction account based on his own family. He had a Slovak family, and he wrote about 3 generations of Slovak men working in the steel mills of Braddock, Pennsylvania. And I grew up in a town not far from there called Duquesne. It's a steel town, and I ended up liking the book, seeing a lot of similarities, and I started asking my mother questions because my grandparents were all deceased, and I'd never asked my grandparents any questions, and so I ended up starting to learn about genealogy just by starting at home, asking questions, and then really diving into the research, and then I decided to do my thesis on my grandmother, so I wanted to write sort of the female version of Out of This Furnace, and so my grandmother came over in 1922. At the time it was Czechoslovakia, and she came over, and I wrote her story, my mother's story, and mine, and so then I turned my thesis into my first book. So that's how I started in genealogy, and I've been doing that ever since. And then I just really started writing, lecturing, and actually sort of thinking about this as a career path in 2000, something like that. Yeah.
Wow. Now, your book is really fascinating. So it's interesting to see how you came around to that idea. And you do a lot of research, not only in how to research women, but also in the Eastern Europe, right? Those are like the 2 main focuses you have, or am I
That's
off base?
No, that's correct. Female, I mean, I started my research with a female ancestor, probably not the smartest thing to do at the time, but I had no idea. I didn't really even know what genealogy was, so I just went, full force diving in. Oh, yeah, I can do this. And, of course, this was pre-internet, so I had to do things the old-fashioned way, interviewing, microfilm records, courthouses, traveling all over the place, and library research and techniques like that. So, I mean, I really, I really started basically from scratch and blind. I mean, I just didn't know. But yeah, I do, now, of course, my specialty is Eastern Europe because I've been doing it for so long. It's really changed the whole process. And it's definitely it's a lot better now because a lot more records are open, and things are coming online through Family Search and other repositories. And so, yeah, Eastern Europe, Slovakia, female ancestors, and then, of course, I do writing. I love to teach and coach writing. So I'm kind of combining all of that into a patchwork career, I guess.
But don't you think that's kind of how I think most genealogists kind of accidentally fall into this subject and then piece together by what they're good at? That's kind of becomes their career, you know? Because I'm kind of in the same boat. If you had told me growing up this is what I would eventually end up doing, I would have said, Genia, what?
Mhm.
What? What are you talking about? And, even in college, if somebody had told me that I was not going to be a scientist with my PhD, but I was going to take my lonely undergraduate biology degree and start doing genealogy with it, I would have told them that they needed to go drink some more.
Oh, right. And my undergrad degree is actually in nutrition,
Oh,
and
wow.
but I've always loved to write, and I had a second major. I had a double major in college. I was an English major as well. I took a double major, but I had to choose the degree, and so at the time I thought job, so I chose the science degree, but I just then completely turned everything around and then decided to go back for my Master's of Fine Arts. And so it kind of was an interesting path that I ended up on. And so I've done some other things along the way, but I finally sort of landed in the genealogy space, and I find it very fascinating. It's just it keeps my interest. There's always something new to learn, and so I think it's great.
So before I let Terry or Jen into this conversation that I've been dominating, sorry, I have one last comment because you said something that triggered this thought in my head. Um, I probably would, the more I think about it now, obviously hindsight's 2020. I actually think if I had been encouraged a little bit earlier, I may have actually gone into journalism and writing as an undergraduate, but I had literally my, my parents are weird, if you can't tell by me. It's the I am considered the normal one in my family, and
I'm gonna send Mom this link.
and my father would always tell me, growing up, oh my God, your vocabulary is woefully lacking. You need to read some more, and you need to write, and you're just, oh my God, what are you doing? And I'm like, thanks, Dad. And I got into high school, and I was never very good at English, and it was always meh. But I liked writing, but I was always told that it was never good enough. So I always figured that I didn't have any talent. Like I couldn't write. I didn't know how. And it was something I should never try to do. And I would doodle around at home or in a journal and stuff like that. But now all I do is write, and it just blows my parents out of the water every time they think about that.
That's a great story.
Isn't
It really is.
It's kind of funny. I mean, I won my junior year in high school. We had to write. The fall semester was a creative writing project, and then the spring semester we had a big semester-long research project. It was supposed to get you ready for college, how to do research projects and stuff. And I loved the creative writing section. And I aced it. I was like one of the few people who aced the project, and I just love it. It was like a series of poems, and you had to write these types of things. And one of them was, you had to take a real life event and describe it in as much detail. And it was like, and I got so much praise on that, and that has stuck with me. But it was kind of all the other negative stuff just convinced me that I was never ever going to be able to write, and it was something I'd have to struggle with. And lab reports are easy, so I became a biologist.
Well, I think you've done well for yourself.
Well, thank you.
The psychology of it all is that the negative always remains.
It
Mhm.
does.
It stays at the top, and the good stuff comes down here, and you've got a couple
Mhm.
people that say, "Oh, you did good," but the important people are saying,
Mhm.
that it holds you back.
Mhm.
I hear you.
Yeah. It's hard to get over that, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I mean, I'm a dabbler in writing. I've written some articles and so forth, but if I really sat down and tried to write something, I choke. It's freaks me out. So my question to you, Lisa, is how on earth do you write all this stuff and not freak out like, oh my God, I have so much I've promised to do. I mean, obviously you've been doing this for 20 years, so you have your routine that you're in now. But how did you get into that routine?
I think, I've always been sort of a disciplined person, so I, you know, I can take a project and I can, outline it and see where it's going and then just kind of sit down and do it. I mean, really that's just it. I mean, I have my moments too. I mean, believe it or not, even though I've been doing it for forever, I have writer's block too sometimes. It really depends on the subject there's a lot of things that can affect one's creative mind, I guess. And so sometimes, I've struggled even most recently. I had some things that I was writing and I just sometimes you just kind of freeze, especially if it's something that maybe I'm not as excited about, but it might be a new area, and I've got to do a lot more research in the background, and so then it kind of slows me down. But I find outlining helps a lot. I find scheduling for me helps. Well, especially I kind of, when it comes to writing, I kind of have ADD, so I do have a lot of different projects always going at once. But I think that can be a blessing and a curse because there are a lot of different deadlines and commitments and things, but then each project may be a little different. So if I'm stuck on one, I can bounce to the other one and then get that done. So I think for me, professional writing is it has a lot to do with the deadline or what I need to accomplish or what I need to output, and so I just have to stay scheduled and I just have to make sure that I plan enough time, and I think I've learned the rhythm to do that. In terms of my own creative writing and my family history writing, I find of course that comes a lot easier. I you know I'll make notes and I'll do a little writing every day on family projects or things that I really want to write about. So there's kind of like the writing that you have to do when you commit to doing it professionally, and there's the writing that you really like to do. So I think it really you get into a routine and you just kind of you get to know yourself. I also know my cycles, and that's crazy, but I know I write creatively best in the morning. So I get up, have my coffee, and I kind of dive into the really creative projects. By like this time at night, my brain shuts down. So I won't get off of here and do any highly intense writing. I'll probably make notes or outline or do something for what I have to do tomorrow, or I'll do some reading or research, just light research, but I won't do anything really intense. So I think you just kind of learn. You just kind of, the more you do it, the more you get to know yourself and how you work best.
Yeah, and I'm like opposite. I'm a night owl.
Me too.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. Everybody has a cycle, and once you kind of get in that rhythm and you figure it out just through trial and error, it really it can make a difference actually.
Sure.
So what would you recommend for the people like me? Because the only writing I do is for my own blog, basically. Once in a while, I got a guest post here and there, and they're usually very, very tiny.
Hmm.
And I'm very glad that they're tiny because then I don't feel I don't feel as horrified doing it. Like, oh my God, this is going to be such hot mess, and it's going to go on so and so's website. Because internally, I have all that negative. You know, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. It's just stupidity. I know that. Um, so
I don't think
what?
it's stupidity. I think maybe it's just confidence.
Confidence, I think, yeah.
Well, it's stupidity that I let that my esteem issues take over my brain. But I know that there are other people like me that they have the issues like I'm not a good enough writer. I'm not good enough to do this. I've had plenty of people tell me when I read you, I hear you speaking, so you do a good job, but it's not enough. You know, it's the bad is here, the good is down here. What do you recommend for those types of people to push them forward?
I think you have to take risks. I really do think, and it's scary to put yourself out there. Even as I've been doing this forever, I still have negativity in my head sometimes, the thing is you have to just sort of say, I'm going to do this. And I think starting out small, with the small guest posts is good. Or maybe branch out and maybe do a small article for another publication, or maybe a bigger type outlet, blog or something like that. But I think that the thing is if you're I also think it's really good to start with writing about write. They always say write what you love, write what you know. I think if you start there and you kind of find your voice, and then the more you do it, I think the more confident that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like I said, everybody writes differently, but if people are saying that you write like you speak, I mean, you could even try things like dictating and
Mm-hmm.
then going back and fixing it. But I think the main thing is to kind of, and this I have to practice what I preach a lot, because you have to also get over the perfectionist syndrome, because it's
Oh yeah.
you want it to be perfect, and you want people to like it, and not everybody is going to always like what you write or what you do. It's part of the job as a writer, and it's hard. And if you're already having those confidence issues, it can kind of knock you down. But my advice is just to keep writing, no matter what. And doing the blog posts are a good way to do that. Doing in depth, is a good way to do that. And you just have to write, because my philosophy always is you can't edit a blank page.
Hmm.
And
That's
so
very true.
if you get something down, the first time out, nobody's going to hit it out of the park the first time around. I mean, very few writers. I don't, there may be a handful of, the super pro professional writers that get everything right the first time out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just have to say, okay, I can do this, and sit down, write from your heart, outline, do whatever it is that will organize your thoughts, and then just sit down and do it. Crank out the draft. Don't worry about self-editing. Let it rest for a while. Come back to it, and then get people that you trust. Get your friends to look at it and give you some honest feedback before you put it out into the world.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice, because I will tell you this. There was a couple springs ago, we had so much rain here, and I wrote a piece about going to the cemetery, and it was like the graves were just basically underwater. It was just horrible. But this was even a couple weeks later, and I went to the cemetery for a client, and I did this as an extra for her because her family was buried at the same cemetery mine was. And I had to actually clean, like get the muck off. It was just disgusting. So I wrote this long piece on it. And I thought, oh my God, this is really good, because I don't ever really think that about my stuff. Like, yeah, it's passable. I can put it on my blog. and it got such good traffic. And actually, I think like one of the Florida genealogical societies wrote me, and they're like, "Can we post this in our newsletter because nobody really thinks about these things, and it was a great thing." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's fine." So I think you're right. Like if you write from something, or if you start with something that either you've been through, you've dealt with, or something that's really within your heart, it is easier to get out and be good enough to be out there, I guess is it.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And you just need to, you just have to keep doing it. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Like a lot of times, sometimes I do write on autopilot because there's, I've been doing it for so long that I can just, the process is something I've developed for myself. That's not to say that, but I think for me, I do like to challenge myself every now and again. So there are on occasions where I'll get assignments, and they may not be in the exact area that I love, but I find, okay, well, what can I learn from this? And then doing the research on that topic just really rejuvenates me. I say, oh, this is something new, or this is something I haven't written about, and then I can take a fresh angle, and I can say, oh yeah, I can do something challenging. And I think that for me at this point, that's important. I like to challenge myself, and I like to branch out a bit. I think sometimes you can also get too comfortable, and I think the only way you do grow as a writer, or as a genealogy speaker, or whatever it is to do things that scare you. And I've really tried to embrace that in the last couple of years, just sort of kind of getting out of a rut and taking some risks and putting doing some challenging things that I never thought I might do. So I think everybody's different, but I think just like I said, being organized, or trying to outline your thoughts, and just taking that approach that I've got to get something down. It may not be perfect, but I can always build, or I can always go back and change it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's always that first step. Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I do find that often I don't make as much progress in my writing because I keep looking back at what I've written and editing. And so just yesterday I was listening to a webinar, one of those free promotion webinars where they try and get you to take their course. But he had he had some really good advice in the main part of his webinar. And in it he was saying that, do your research, get your outline started, all that kind of stuff, so that you can just sit down and write. And don't look back. You're always going forward when you do the writing. And, that hit home for me because a lot of my writing, I tend to research while I'm writing, which, if you're doing that, it's very easy to suddenly see Facebook, LinkedIn, and
Squirrel.
writing.
Absolutely.
So, I thought it was very good advice, to get that research and organization done ahead of time so that you have everything at your fingertips and you can just write. And then
I agree.
if you come across something you need to research, you make a note of it, you go back later, but you keep moving forward. So I'm going to try and institute that in my own writing. We'll see how it goes.
There's a reason why periodically you see me post out, I am not on Facebook today.
Yes.
You know how to get a hold of me, that's how you do it. Because, I have the squirrel syndrome repeatedly.
There are days when you do that and I'm like, I just want to text her all day long.
I'll ignore you. There has been moments where I've taken my phone, because I always have it here next to my desk in case kids, family, whatever.
Sure.
But there was a moment last week when my son, who knew I was working on a deadline, kept texting me. So I put it in the other room. And then he's like, Mom, you didn't answer. I'm like, was it important? Did you die?
Was there blood?
Yeah, what was worse is when he was downstairs and he was too lazy to walk upstairs to ask me the question.
Aha.
Rough life.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's awesome.
So we've been on for almost a half an hour, which is usually what we try to do is 30 minutes. So this is your last chance to bombard Lisa with any questions. Because she's been such a good sport. Actually, Lisa, is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, I have some really interesting things coming down the pipeline here in my own personal projects. I do have a book coming out, a guide coming out on Eastern European research. I can't divulge too much about it yet, but it's coming out in 2016, early 2016.
Wonderful.
Probably in time to sell it at Roots Tech, which I will be at.
Yay!
So I'll be giving a talk, giving some presentations at Roots Tech, and so that's sort of what kind of consumed my summer is doing this book, and I'm kind of excited about it, and I'm actually doing the proofing this week for it. So I have the galleys, and I'm going through it, and it's kind of interesting to see that whole process when you actually see and you say, oh, I wrote all this. I can't believe it. It's been months and months and months of blood, sweat, and tears, and here it is. So that's the exciting thing. Just got some presentations, conferences coming up. I just got back from Connecticut. I was at the Polish Genealogical Society of Connecticut in the Northeast this weekend, and that was a really great conference. Heading out to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the 23rd, 24th of October for the Czechoslovak Genealogical Society conference.
Wow.
And then I'll be heading out to Salt Lake the first week of December for Leland Meitzler's Salt Lake City Christmas tour. So that will keep me hopping. Got some webinars in between. And right now I'm actually currently coaching the genealogy writing intensive with Thomas McKenty through the Hack Genealogy website. So we started our first session last night. We've got a great group of folks trying to do the things you were talking about, get started on their writing. And so I'm really excited about doing that for the next 6 weeks. So
that was
got
sold
a lot
out
of things
too, wasn't it?
What's that?
The writing intensive. It was a sold out group.
Yeah, it was a sold out group. Yeah, so so it's people that really want to jump in and finally start writing, working on a family history project, and and we use a closed Facebook group, so it's really great that people can get feedback on what they're submitting, and we have assignments and things. So it's going to be a busy fall, and but I'm excited. I have a lot of different projects going on, and I think that's the interesting thing for me is I never get bored. There's always something new and something different to work on.
Cool.
Good.
That's really cool. One of these days I'm going to take that writing intensive just because I'm curious.
Okay. We'd love to have you.
I gotta find the time.
Yeah, I know.
Oh. You notice how she just pops out there with when?
I'm just thinking because I know how busy you are that I just like to see how you add that to your schedule.
Well, Shannon, you're still studying with National Institute, right?
Yeah, I'm in my last year.
Oh, wow.
If everything goes right, I will have my certificate in American Studies. December of next year will be my last course.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a commitment. So,
that's a 3-year commitment.
Absolutely. That's a big commitment.
Yeah, because I was actually thinking about that earlier today. I started the October after
Yes.
FGS in Fort Wayne.
Yeah. I remember you telling us about that.
Yeah.
And I've been going steady since then. I actually, because we moved this summer, so I actually for the first time took 2 months off, like where I didn't do any classes or anything for the first time, and now I'm like, I feel guilty.
You have to live too.
Yeah,
exactly.
And luckily, I work with Gina Filibert Ortega, and she's a great, great person, and was really understanding. And she's like, "Dude, I get it. Take a month or two."
Yeah.
No. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. I totally forgot you were doing that.
Yeah, and I'm in ProGen.
Oh my gosh.
I'm in ProGen until April.
Wow.
Now I understand why I said when.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, maybe next fall we can catch you for the writing intensive.
Very soon.
Oh, yay! Isn't that exciting?
Yeah. One of these days I'll get it framed.
I know. I'm like, mine's here somewhere. I don't know where.
Reshuffled my desk, so I came across it. I was like, oh, yeah, I should frame this.
You notice that for the last 2 months, I still have a picture sitting over here on my floor. I have it.
I like looking at it.
That's my favorite. Can you see what that is, Lisa? Do you know what that is?
It looks like a tree or something.
It's a Norman Rockwell.
Oh, I can't make out the.
It's the Norman Rockwell family tree.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we were in this is going to sound really pompous, and I don't mean it to be this way, but not this last summer because I was moving, but the summer before, we had extra timeshare points, and my parents who have these timeshares and they never go anywhere, periodically call me and say, you need to use them or they're going to go away. Okay, so my family, my husband, my 2 boys, and me, and then another couple that we know, went to the Berkshires, 4th of July week, the week of 4th of July.
Oh, wow.
We drove there. They're from North Carolina, and we're from Virginia, and we drove to Massachusetts. It was actually a lot of fun. We spent 4th of July in Scranton. But anyway, one of the things we did was the Norman Rockwell Museum was just about 15 miles from where we were staying. And I highly recommend it if you're ever in the area. It's a wonderful place to go. I was kind of wishy-washy on it, and I'm so glad that the friend who was with us, who really, really wanted to go because she loves Norman Rockwell, drug us. And my kids liked it too, which was, I thought, fantastic. And that's a print, but the actual picture is about the size of my wall. And they have the original painting there. And I walked in and I was like, oh! And my husband said, I'm not going home without that, aren't I?
I understand.
Yeah. So my parents, as a housewarming gift, framed it for me.
Nice.
Oh, that's very nice.
So I just have to hang it somewhere.
Fabulous. That's great, though.
Yeah. But yeah. So yeah. Well, any last thoughts, Jen? I think you've been the quietest before we sign off for this evening.
Nope, I'm good.
Oh, you're good.
I got some excellent advice from Lisa, so
good.
I'm all set to start writing again.
Great. Just, you got to sit down and do it. Let go of the fears. You get better with practice.
I agree with everything. It's positive validation.
Yay.
Exactly, right?
Yay, I'm doing it right. Well, thank you for joining us, Lisa. It's been a fun half hour. We've enjoyed it. I hope you have too.
I have. This was great. Thanks so much for inviting me, and I'll look forward to seeing you all, hopefully, at one of the conferences, right?
Definitely.
We will be at Roots Tech.
Fabulous.
Of course, we'll be having dinner at least at one of those, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Or at least lots of drinks.
Yes.
One or the other, absolutely.
That's right. Well, on that note, everybody, thank you for joining us again for Chit Chat. We greatly appreciate it. Remember, we always love hearing from you. So drop us a line in the comments below. Find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and send us a message at editor@theinDepthGenealogist.com. We look forward to seeing you next time. And don't forget to go in depth with all of your ancestors. Have a good night.